Welcome in, everybody. It's a special afternoon edition of Catfish on Ice, episode 250 with your host, Chad Minton. We got an outstanding guest joining us back on the podcast, Greg Amundsen, creator of Puck Luck Analytics. He is here to dissect everything that is going wrong with the Nashville Predators right now. Maybe even hopefully give us a little glimmer of hope of some things they might be performing well in. Maybe the law of averages can come around for us. But, of course, the Preds, they're running out of time. We really got into it in last night's live episode 249 with co-host Max Greenberg. We really just sounded the alarms, broke everything down, got it out of our systems a little bit. But, Greg, how are you doing? How is the early portion of the NHL season treating you?
Yeah, doing well. It's fun to have hockey back again, the new season. And, there's been a lot of interesting storylines here to follow to start the season. The Preds are certainly one of them, but there's been a lot of things going on and surprising people around the whole league. So.
Yeah, I think the Predators have gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. You know, in the offseason, they were the gem of the offseason. No one could stop talking about them with the signings of Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea and just all the money they spent. And now they're the biggest, they're one of the league's biggest storylines for the wrong reason now. And so let's really break into it here. Before we do that, let me tell you about our three amazing sponsors that are sponsoring episode 250 today. We got our sponsor DraftKings with promo code THPN for bonus bets. We got the Game Time ticket app that can get you $20 off your first ticket purchase using their app. And then, of course, Raycon with their wireless earbuds and other wireless technology. They've got a Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale going on to get discounts on their store-wide merchandise. So with that said, let me get into it here with Greg and first ask, how big of a hole have the Preds dug themselves into when you look at it from your analytics, when you look at your standings projections, and can they realistically climb their way out of it? Because that's all I'm hearing from a lot of optimistic fans is, look, we're really early in the season, 14 games in. But how quickly are they running out of time to turn this thing around, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely time's ticking. I think they're just sitting just outside in my current projections. But I mean, they're right in the pack with a bunch of teams there, around the bubble. So, I think it's not too late, but they got to start banking some points here to stay in it. So. You look. There's kind of a couple reference points historically that people talk about. One is November 1st and being more than 4 points out. At that point, I think there was only one team that was sort of out by that measure this year. And then the other one is kind of American Thanksgiving, and if you're in at that point, I think it's about 80%. The teams are still in at the end of the year. So, if they don't bank a few points here, that's they're going to have to be one of those outliers the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of one of the problems the Preds are facing is you say, you use the terminology banking points. They're not even getting to overtime and at least snatching overtime point. They're taking all of these regulation losses. That's really hurting them as well. They started off 0-5-0 on the season. And I mean, for me, I just don't have a lot of excuses, but to bail them out right now. But I think that's a good measuring stick that you just said, kind of Thanksgiving. The general manager, Barry Trotz, has come out and said that his patience is running thin, and a lot of it kind of sent shockwaves throughout the Nashville market that the GM would come out and say that so early in the season. We're trying to read into what he means by that, but he basically said, look, we got to figure this out quick or the rebuild process is going to have to happen. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to ship off Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi, but it does mean he's going to shake the roster up if things don't figure out. So we were thinking like November 20th to around Thanksgiving, kind of like what you're saying, Greg, is kind of the cutoff point where if they haven't turned this thing around, then the season might be in the gutter at that point.
Yeah, certainly becomes a tall task at that point. So
which players are currently underperforming that stick out the most for you? Because we're looking at one of your post on Twitter here, and it really was looking at the kind of explain to us what we're seeing here on the screen for our YouTube viewers. But of course, the horrible debacle against the Panthers last night. But I mean, no one's going to argue that the Predators were expected to win that game necessarily. But the way they lost, just very lopsided, very ugly hockey. They took a massive amount of penalties. But kind of tell us what we're seeing on the screen here about their save 5-versus-5 save percentage, and just what is it? What are some of the players who are underperforming for this team right now?
Yeah, I mean, just to start at the team level, that's I put this up kind of knowing we were going to be chatting about it today, and looking at the team level, this kind of gives a picture of some of the key metrics that I use as inputs in my models, and that starts from the player end of it, but then at the team level, we see the markers on those Corsi rate showing you what the net is. So seeing those on the right hand side is a good thing.
Okay.
And seeing them near where they were projected, I mean, that's another good thing, is that their possession game is not far from what we expected, and it's also in the positive. So, I mean, that's a good sign, and those are things that, long term, generally that's a good indicator that they should find some success. The one right on the bottom is with the PDO and the shooting and save percentages. We know they're more liable to fluctuate and in a wider range, especially in short terms. So that's where the PDO is just the save percentage plus shooting percentage, and historically, I look back to last year, and the Sharks were the worst team at the end of the year with a 970 there. And right now the Preds are at a 933, I think it was. So, more than double as far off of break even there on the percentages that, the worst team in the league was last year. So that's one where I think it has to improve at some point. There's got to be some, an element of luck in there that's sort of hurting them here off the start, but it really should even out as the season goes on here, at least to some extent.
Interesting. And and no offense to the San Jose Sharks, but that's not good company to be in. Especially when you're a team like the Predators who just spent all that money. And obviously, it's not like this team has an excuse like, oh, well, we're deep in a rebuild, so you got to expect these things. Not even close. So that's the big panic. That's their big reason why there's so much panic right now for the Predators.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're having a tough go here, and I mean, you can see the other thing that's on here is what's predicted out of the model, and again, you see in the prediction's pretty close to that, 1.0 break even mark, it's a combination of shooting and save percentage here, but I mean, you can really see the shooting percentage is way below expected. I think I looked it up the other day, and they're like 4.3% as a team at 5-on-5, something like that. So teams generally in the long term, are a lot closer to 8%. And it does kind of settle in there with as the sample size gets larger and larger. So.
And everybody, you can check out Greg Amundsen's website, puckluckanalytics.com. So go check that out. You can just spend a whole day. If you're a hockey nerd, you can spend all day just crunching these numbers and have a lot of fun. But I want to check out one more post that you put also last night. And it was more talking about the individual players. And it does tie into the free agency that the Predators had. So I want to get into that. And it's right here with you really point out Philip Forsberg, Steven Stamkos, and Jonathan Marchessault have 5 points between them at 5-versus-5 this season through the Preds. And this was before last night's game, but still holds a lot of water still. So just kind of break down some of the individual performances that are really sticking out with you for the Preds right now.
Yeah. Again, it's similar to the theme we're seeing at the team level, right? The possession game hasn't been so much of an issue, in particular for the guys at the top of the lineup. I kind of picked on these three guys just because they haven't got the points, but here, yeah, with Stamkos, we're looking at right now is you can see at the bottom, what his production so far this year has been versus what the model predicted or is predicting for go forward, and it's well below. And again, with the possession metrics sort of looking close to what we expected, and even for Stamkos in particular, they're kind of net positive. That goes back again to shooting percentages and things like that. They're just having it seems a little bit of a run of bad luck here. That's taken longer than you'd like for it to iron itself out.
Yeah, the shooting percentage is something that was sticking out to me as well when I was just checking out some stuff early on. I think like Stamkos, he's a career 16% shooting percentage, and he's like, I haven't checked it recently, but I'm pretty sure he was like just way down below his career average. And that's just usually a pretty clear indicator that you're getting some bad puck luck when a player like of Stamkos's stature is down in the 2-3% wherever he was the last time I checked, 4%. He has scored some goals lately, so I'm sure his shooting percentage did increase a little bit since then. But that's the first thing I noticed. And then you look at Roman Josi. What are you seeing from him? He doesn't even look like the same player. He looks like his speed is slowed down. He is an aging player, so I do understand that part of it. But I don't know if I see the same excuse that I have for some of these other guys that I do for Josi. His defense doesn't look as good this year.
Yeah, I think just looking at the numbers side of it, again, it's a similar story to the forwards at least at the top of the lineup. His corset rates are, fairly well in the positive. High danger is a little bit closer to break even, but again, his individual 5-on-5 production. On the chart I have for him, it looks awfully similar to Stamkos in that, the points just aren't coming, despite the fact that the Preds are, controlling the play in generally, at least a little bit to the positive when he's on the ice. So.
Yeah, I'm looking.
So again, it's something I think is, it looks like it should turn at some point, and some points should come.
So there you have it, Preds fans. There is reason to cling on to hope still, even though it is so hard to even fathom that with what we're seeing. But I'm looking at Josi's got a shooting percentage of 1.7% right now. That's crazy. One of the things that does give me a little hope as well, and just to shift to the goaltending aspect of it is, and I can go off eye test, but obviously I like to turn to analytics like what you provide for us, Greg. When I look at Juuse Saros' game, I don't think he's been anywhere near the problem for why the Preds are taking a lot of these losses. I've looked at his numbers when he's facing the other team's power play, and they're just elite. They really are. And he's been the victim of some really bad defensive breakdowns in front of him. I have not been impressed at all by the defense from the Predators and protecting their goalies. So kind of give me your thoughts on Saros and what the analytics might be saying about him.
Yeah, again, goaltending is particularly in what the data that's available and publicly is a lot harder to delve into and predict. But I think we know he's one of the top goalies in the league, and I don't think it'd be a pretty big shock if he kind of turned into a pumpkin overnight. Right?
Yeah.
It's And like you say, well, while we were looking at the sort of the cards for the guys at the top of the lineup, you go a little bit further down, and that's where there's a few there that, you know, the Corsi rates and whatnot are not looking as good, you know, across the board. So, you know, at the team level as a whole, it looks okay, but there's definitely a few spots in the lineup where, you know, again, if there's maybe a few more defensive breakdowns than you like, and that's going to spill over to the save percentages and that as well. Once you know, giving up the grade A chances all the time, there's only so much you can expect your goalie to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, like, when you talk about, okay, a lot of this puck luck's got to turn around. They're showing some positives in a lot of areas. I mean, you just got to believe that eventually they're going to start getting some good fortune here. You combine that with the fact that they do still have Juuse Saros, and he looks like he's still playing at a very good level despite what the team is doing around him. But I want to shift it now back to, because you in our private conversation to get ready for this segment here with you, you kind of brought up Trotz's interesting strategy of team building. And, you know, a lot of people are already playing Monday morning quarterback here, and they're trying to blast Trotz and saying, oh, that was a terrible decision to sign all these aging veterans and whatnot. But, you know, Trotz was in a position where he had all this money to spend. He wasn't going to just sit on the sidelines and not add to this roster and go for it. So I just think that's a little bit playing the hindsight game. But what do you see? What do you think about how he constructed this roster, and went for guys like Stamkos and Marchessault and spent the money he did?
Yeah, I think it's a interesting storyline here, and I've spent quite a bit of time. If you poke around on the site, you'll see a lot of posts in the last while about, you know, looking at more longer term team building and stuff around that. So, you know, this kind of fits into that really well. You know, certainly we know about age curves. We know as players, you know, get into their 30s, you're going to have some declines in their performance, and you've got to offset that somehow, you know, just to stay where you're at. So that was something, I think, when Trotz signed some of these guys in the summer, you know, I certainly thought about and wondered about, you know, how that was going to play out in the long term. At the same time, we know what they've done recently, and expect them to still be, you know, strong contributors, you know, at the front end of these deals for sure. So, you know, again, the model was, I think it put the Preds were kind of, you know, they were in the playoffs in the initial season opening predictions, kind of, you know, not a real strong contender, but not too bad. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why is, I think, you know, they had Forsberg and Josi and Saros there as a nice starting point. But then when you look to the last year's roster, you know, what came after that, and there was maybe a bigger drop than you'd like there. So I thought they needed to find a way to add some supporting talent around those guys. And I think you know, Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, those guys are all good fits there with their current abilities. So, you know, I like that from the short term. I wondered about the long term, and that was something I know. I think Trotz, I think it was this week, he had the comment about starting the rebuild plan that kind of blew up a little bit on. No
one really knows what he means exactly by that. You know,
I did see an article. It was Alex Daughtry in the Tennessean that I thought had a little bit more context that was good there than a lot of the others. And, you know, it really seemed like, you know, he's not interested in blowing up that top part of the roster. It was more around the bottom part and bringing in prospects maybe earlier than he had planned, which then I thought spoke more to sort of the long-term vision. And it does seem like he's trying to put a group together that's maybe 18 to 20 years old now and maybe there's I think they got three first rounders in 2025 right now. There's a nice cohort there building that if he can add to it and bring it up, that 5 years from now or so it could be starting to become the next sort of core of the team. So I think if he's interested in sort of bringing in some of those guys, seeing if they can take some jobs from the guys that aren't getting it done, in the middle or the bottom part of the lineup, then if that's the way he's going with that comment, then I think that's kind of a nice fit between maybe the short term and the long term vision, and not necessarily robbing one to kind of focus on the other.
Yeah, and I do like that he's keeping the long-term vision in perspective. You can't just be short-sighted here. And so I think it's good. It also sends a message to the current team that you need to pick up your play, and we need to turn this thing around quick. And so, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And a lot of your numbers that you've talked about today gives me even more confidence. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Predators go on a really month-long strong hot streak and they start gradually making up ground again in the standings. I mean, as we sit right now today, Greg, they are last place in the Western Conference with 9 points. So I'm thinking that my thing is, how deep of a hole are they going to be in to where even if they do go on a month-long hot streak, is that going to be enough to make up all the ground they've lost in a Central Division that looks very, very deep and very competitive, as it usually is? So this kind of brings me into my closing topic I want to get into with today, Greg, and that's just an overall outlook of your standings projections right now. Some teams that are really sticking out, that are overperforming, doing the opposite of what the Predators are doing right now, and kind of like zero in more on the Western Conference or the Central Division, if you could, as well, because I'm seeing a lot of quality middle of the road teams who could push for a wild card spot. The Blues are looking good, better than maybe people thought. The Minnesota Wild have been very surprising to me personally. I didn't have a lot of preseason confidence in the Wild, but I mean, they're right up there towards the top of the division. And of course, the Winnipeg Jets are 12-1-0, which is, I knew they were good, but I didn't see them being this dominant. So kind of break down your standings projections and some surprises for you right now.
Yeah. I think just to start with the Central Division itself going into the season, I kind of flagged that as looked like maybe the toughest division. There was Chicago improved. They still were definitely a step or two behind the rest of the group. But you've got, Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas that coming back after good seasons last year and kind of expected them all to be good again. Utah made some moves that look like they could maybe, force their way into the mix. And then the Preds, obviously, with the big acquisitions in the summer, look like they could be there. And then even St. Louis and Minnesota were, I think they were the, sort of 6 and 7 in the group going into the season, but not really much behind those top five. So it really looked like it could be a real fight in the Central. Winnipeg, I think there's maybe some signs they're having a little bit of the opposite kind of luck as the Preds here early in the season. I think they're good, but probably not like 13-1 good. That's probably not going to sustain itself. So, but they've got those points banked now, which is a good position to be in. So
I wonder about Colorado, because they've dealt with so many injuries. If it's just a matter of time as they get more fully healthy, that they're just going to go on a heater and just regress back to where really get back to where they should be, and it ends up coming down to a 3-horse race between Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. But yeah, it's such a deep division. It really is.
Yeah, definitely with Colorado. I mean, they're in almost the same spot as Nashville right now, in that they haven't been banking the points early, and their issue has clearly been injury driven there. So, but again, as they get healthy, it's going to be a question of how much runway is left when they start to get some guys back and maybe start making some ground up. So, yeah. And then with that, the other angle here is, I think the Pacific is certainly not as strong. So I have a hard time seeing where the Pacific's going to even pick up one of the wild cards. So I think it's there's a pretty good chance that there could be 5 Central teams that make the cut come the end of the season here.
And then also to look at the Pacific Division, though, because you've got that team, the Edmonton Oilers, which was a resounding popular Stanley Cup pick going into the season for very obvious reasons. But, they've also been equally as underwhelming as the Predators have been. Are they going through the same similar issues as the Predators, or do they have a different set of problems that's hurting them? Because I'm really interested in the Oilers and their struggles as well.
Yeah, I think they have had some of the same luck, particularly very early in the season. I do wonder about their defense, and the offer sheets from St. Louis are kind of threw a wrench into things late in the offseason for them. So I definitely see that that top 4, they maybe have a spot there they need to address. And then I do wonder if they've got, obviously McDavid's a pretty dynamic player, but I'm not sure that they have the speed through the top of the lineup that they maybe had even last season with some of the guys that are have been moved on here. So again, they're you look at their lineup as well, and they're one of the older teams in the league, if not the oldest. It's again one of these that get a whole lineup of guys that are just gradually declining in performance, and where do you make that up? So you either gotta have the young guys developing internally, or bring in from the outsides.
All right, Greg, it's been awesome having you. We've had Greg Amundsen on, creator of Puck Luck Analytics. Go check out his website, puckluckanalytics.com. Give him a follow on X or Twitter as well. Puts out a ton of great information. We love having him on. I think this is his second appearance on Catfish on Ice, and we hope to have him on again in the future. It's always a good time, Greg. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a blast.
All right, everybody. It's been a special afternoon edition of episode 250 of Catfish on Ice. We are presented by DraftKings, the Game Time Ticket app, and Raycon wireless earbud technology with our promo codes THPN. Be sure to go check out the YouTube channel right now after watching this special edition with Greg Amundsen, and go check out our live episode 249, which we just recorded last night after the Preds and Panthers game. So until then, everybody, take care, enjoy your weekends, and we will see you soon.